Hello, my name is Roger Richard, and this is my critical assignment for Kinesiology 550, Legal Issues in Kinesiology. First, we'll start with a little facility background. I am currently employed by EM Speed and Power. I am the Assistant Director of Programming and Athletic Performance, as well as the Director of our internship program, and I'm also responsible somewhat for the hiring and firing of employees. So this class is actually pretty beneficial for me. What we are is an athletic training facility. We do instruction and education in terms of athletic movement enhancement. We provide motivation as strength coaches. I think that's something we all do. The purpose of a facility like this is to get other athletes working together, so you get some socialization out of it, as well as use of facilities that you don't normally get at like a commercial gym, like a 24-hour fitness. And that's part of the reason why I chose to use the facility I'm currently working in, because this is the field that I want to continue to stay in. I'm kind of rehashing what I just said. Currently a manager and assistant director of training. I take care of program design. I manage and operate our head facility, which is in Rancho Cucamonga, and I'm also responsible for hiring and firing at that facility. Legal issues that come up at a facility like this. You have your typical tort law issues, your employment discrimination issues, as well as labor law issues. In terms of tort law, you have negligence and premises liability. You look at a case like Abrahams versus Powerhouse Gym, where you have a defendant who was injured while trying to adjust a piece of equipment. And that's something that could happen at any gym, but specifically at a gym like ours because of the kind of the nature of the business. In premises liability cases, alleging an injury by a defective condition or something maybe that we haven't taken care of or thought ahead of time to make sure is correct, can be very detrimental to the business. Employment discrimination, because I do some hiring and firing, it's important for me to be aware of the employment discrimination part of it. Sexual harassment is something that could come up, not necessarily, I guess it could be between employees, but discrimination in terms of hiring female trainers. This industry is an industry where there aren't a lot of, especially in the strength conditioning field, as many as there are men, I guess I would say. And the population that we deal with is softball a lot. So having female coaches is very important. But on the same token, we can't hire too many without hiring enough males. And, the discrimination issue kind of comes up. In this particular case, female employees were subjected to a hostile work environment based on their sex or their gender. There was an employee who was demoted because she got pregnant and could no longer perform some of her duties, and another employee that felt there was some quid pro quo kind of going on in terms of management and her, and some retaliation that kind of led to that. So it's something that we want to try to avoid because employees are entitled to a workplace where they're not discriminated against. Labor law, and this is something for every company, but I guess in our sense, because we have so many different types of employees or levels of employees, with salaried employees, hourly employees, independent contractors, and things like that, it's very important that we stay abreast of changes in the labor law. In this particular case, we're looking at Gold's Gym violated some of the Fair Labor and Standards Act because they weren't giving proper commissions and proper overtime. And so we have to kind of make sure that we stay aware of what minimum wage is, what overtime pay is, how old employees should be, even, federal as well as state, because they differ. So it's important that a company knows those rules and make sure that they don't violate them, stays in compliance with the FLSA. Risk management. Couple of different risks that come along with owning a training facility or running a training facility. People is probably the biggest one. It kind of bleeds into every other risk. But the training staff, they must be properly qualified. Having a training staff that's not qualified leads to a potential risk to a coach, to an athlete, even to a parent or a spectator that's there to watch their particular athlete. So it's very important that we properly vet employees. We make sure that they're up to date on whatever certifications that are necessary. We do our own internal training to make sure they know what we're expecting from them as coaches, and that they're performing the exercises properly. Programming. this is along the same lines where our coaches have individual clients that they work with. The exercises that they program for them have to be a little smart. Some of the athletes play one sport and it's very repetitive. And so as a coach, you can't necessarily program those same movements because you lead to repetitive injuries, and people are less likely to blame their sport coaches for, an elbow injury. And it's going to be something that, I've been doing whatever exercise with my strength coach, and now all of a sudden my elbow hurts. So it's important that we as a staff are properly qualified and understand all the risks, potential risks that come along with training an athlete of different sports. The machines and equipment, because we aren't just using our body weight, we're using machines, dumbbells, barbells, kettlebells, things like that. We need to make sure that each coach is properly trained in the exercise movement, as well as make sure that the athletes are performing the exercises correctly. If an athlete or a group of athletes is working together, they need to understand how to spot each other to reduce the risk of injury. Equipment and machines need to be updated pretty regularly. They need to be checked and maintained daily. Any signs of wear and tear need to be addressed immediately. If it's something that can lead to a potential injury, it needs to be taken off the floor and then checked and corrected before it can be used again. This especially goes for treadmills where the actual tread on the treadmill becomes worn, or some of the selectorized machines with the cables. If the cables become frayed, we need to take that off the floor, or put up a sign for them not to use it, so we can make sure that we address that before it becomes an injury risk. The facilities in general, because of the different types of flooring, the platforms, the basketball court, the hallways, the turf, we need to try to keep those as clean as possible. Keep whatever tripping hazards away. If we're mopping the floor, make sure we put up signs so people know so they aren't wet. On the basketball courts, they get sweaty from time to time. We want to try to make sure we get through there and mop those up whenever we can. Design layout in general. You can't have, things that are potential risk to injury right around the basketball court, because you got to assume that someone may, dive for a loose ball, right? We don't want them diving for a loose ball into a leg press machine. Employment laws, kind of rehashing this. You got your wages and your hours, and there's just another example of, making sure that you're in compliance with the FLSA, and making sure that we're paying employees properly, and taking care of their wages and their hours. Hiring, firing, discrimination. In the top case with Smith versus Equinox, the plaintiff is suing for unpaid wages and retaliatory termination, defamation, breach of contract. There was some issue with the way they were paying his commissions for sales, as well as not paying him for hours when he was in the building preparing for work, which technically counts as work time. The bottom case here, Raytheon versus Hernandez, employee was fired for a positive drug test. He later tried to reapply and was denied. And luckily, Raytheon kept track of the reason why he was fired, and also had something written in their actual hiring and firing manual that let people know that they would not, for certain reasons, hire or rehire people. So it was found it wasn't actually discrimination because they had a pre-existing comment in their employee manual. Employee safety, as a company, it's our responsibility to make sure that employees are safe, that their workplace is safe, whether that be from discrimination or from potential injury. There are some inherent risks in working in the strength conditioning field, but there should be nothing that increases or heightens those particular risks. So we got to make sure that we stay in compliance with OSHA, and take care of making sure that all those things are taken care of. Make sure the employees are aware of what is allowed and isn't allowed. Application. What I've learned. This was actually really helpful for me. Like I said, I'm a manager right now, and I'm also in the process of potentially opening another facility. So knowing all of this stuff is really helpful. The liability and the negligence, the discrimination, all those things are going to be very important in the next few months of my life. So I was actually very glad to have this class. It definitely made me a lot more cautious. The other day I was in the gym and I'm looking at the floor for spots where somebody might trip, or every time I see something that, is out of order, I'm trying to hurry up and fix it, to avoid, some potential lawsuit. Faith integration. So the way I took this is, as a manager, you want to be more of a leader. You don't want to, be somebody's boss. You want to guide them and direct them and help them to become better coaches, better employees, better people. And so the three scriptures that I found were more related to leadership. Proverbs 11:14, where there's no guidance, the people fall, but in the abundance of counselors, there's victory. So I took that as, if as a manager, I can guide my employees and give them the right steps, or kind of guide their steps in what we do as coaches, that even if they decide to move on, which happens a lot in the training business, and they move on, they carry on what we've kind of instilled in them as coaches, and so we as a company are victorious, and that as they move on to the next level or to the next spot, they're also victorious. Psalm 78 and 72. So he shepherded them according to the integrity of his heart, and guided them with skillful hands. I definitely pride myself, especially with my interns, pride myself with teaching them as much as I can. And I know they're in school and they're learning through school, but in terms of hands-on under the bar experience, I feel like I have a big part in creating what they become when they leave, in terms of what they're going to do as a coach at their own facilities, at other facilities. And I've been lucky enough to do pretty well at that so far, and hopefully continue to keep it up. And I think the biggest one, and this is something that goes for everybody, you treat others the way you want to be treated. I mean, that the golden rule, right? So we treat our clients the way we want to be treated. We treat other coaches, we treat parents, we treat people that we do business with the same way we want to be treated. And I think that's probably the most important thing that we need to do as coaches, as people, as a society. Some legal issues that can come up in relation to religion in the workplace. The First Amendment gives you the right to be free from an imposed religion, and the right to practice any religion. And so I think in the workplace, you can't tell people what to, you want to lead them in a way that's, that's godlike, but you don't want to tell them what their God can be. And so, you can't discriminate against people because of their religion. You can't tell them that they have to work certain days because those days may be religious holidays, or certain days of the week they're not available because of their religion. And I think we need to understand that religion just isn't simply a matter of belief. People practice their religion through actions, the way they look, the way they dress, the way they wear their hair, going out and trying to recruit others of their faith, certain diets, and there's a whole list of things here of different ways that people express their religion, and we have to be accepting of that as managers, as employers, and even as employees, and co-workers. Everyone's going to be a little bit different, whether that be because of religious reasons or upbringing reasons, or what part of the country they're from. I think we have to do a good job of respecting each person. And that kind of goes back to that golden rule. We treat others the way we want to be treated, regardless of our differences. That's the end of my presentation. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you, and good luck.